set up there. Here we go. Hold your gaps, fill your lanes tonight. Play a full 200-foot game.
Game on!
Checks. Oh, game on. Here we are. Hey, welcome to the Straight Off the Pipe podcast, brought to you by the Heavy Hockey Network. My dyslexic intro today. Oh boy, I'm your co-host Dash, and in the sin bin beside me, as always, my co-host Mike Dursa. He's the Wheezy to my George, the Marge to my Homer, my 60-day fiance, and I love him. How's GP doing tonight, buddy?
Well, it was a beautiful day in the grandest prairie of them all. Sun was shining, birds were singing, but time to talk a little hockey. Tonight we've got Jennifer Chefero. Did I get it? Did I get it?
No, you blew it. You really did. We'll go with Chefero, though.
Chefero.
Tonight okay. I'll be Chefero. It's good. Let's go.
Let's just wrap some hockey no matter what we do.
God. Yeah, I'm not the talent around here. I'm the old joke.
He's the looks, I'm the brains. Okay, Jen? You'll figure that out soon.
I'm the junior year Massachusetts Lady Bing trophy winner. Yeah, that's me. Happy to have you. You know, you've got your coaching experience, training experience. You do a blog, and we're happy to have you here to talk some shop. I've got something that I guess I want to say to like oil country first, and then we'll get to you. So for the first time in my life, I actually sat and watched paint dry today, and was absolutely stoked doing it as the Edmonton Oilers released a video of painting the lines at Rogers Place. I for one am thrilled that fans are going to be back in the buildings, and hockey as we know it is coming back. I've missed being in that building and hearing that noise and seeing the fastest player to ever lace him up play live. I never thought I took going to games for granted, but I realize I have never had the thirst to be there more in my life than I do right now. How do you two feel about that?
I mean, like getting the rink painted, that's a great thing. I mean, nobody likes to watch paint dry, but in this case, it's a good thing. And I mean, it's been a couple years almost, or a year and a half since we've been able to go to games, so I'm excited.
Let me watch paint dry. Give me that smell. Give me those sounds. I want to smell the ice. I want to. Oh man, I can't wait. I'm so happy that we can get back in the stands again. And you know what? I bet the players are too. It's going to be a different show.
Isn't that it? Like you see them painting the lines and kind of doing the logo and all that, and just from the video, it's almost like you could smell the ice and that taste is just salivating and just can't wait to get back. Yeah, give me that $20 beer. I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, give me one of those lukewarm Bobby Nix burgers.
It looks so much better in the picture of him holding it than, but you know.
Excited to have you on the show, Jen. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Watch some of your podcasts, read some of your blogs. I think you're hilarious. You're an awesome follow on Twitter. I think you got common sense, and more importantly, you show good hockey sense. So yeah, looking forward to kind of getting into some X's and O's and maybe just bullshitting some hockey and whatever we kind of get into. So
yeah, that's great.
I guess having the fastest player on the planet play for us, we're gonna make you answer questions real fast. I got some. We'll call this the McDavid round.
Nice.
Favorite team?
Pittsburgh.
Favorite player?
Joe Thornton.
I was supposed to know that too.
You jumped on the Leafs bandwagon for a little while.
For a hot minute.
For a hot Joe Thornton minute.
Now I'm in Florida with the Panthers, so.
Yeah.
Crosby or McDavid?
Sydney.
Wayne or Mario?
Mario.
Oh, that's it. I'm out of here.
Fake outrage, yeah.
But actually, let me say something. I liked Mario before I had any love for the Penguins. Like, growing up watching hockey, there was something about Lemieux's game that really attracted me to it. Don't get me wrong, Gretzky's phenomenal. There's no question in that. But There's something about Mario's game. Like, he just had this life in it that was, you know, like magnetic or magical. Like, I can't put words to it. Really, really love his game, overall game. Whereas I think Gretzky, as good as he was, you know, more flashy and kind of more showy. Whereas Lemieux was like there to win a game. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. Like, no disrespect to Wayne, obviously one of the greatest players. I honestly don't think he would pluck him in his prime and put him in today's game. I don't think we would see the same results that he had, you know, in his career.
Well, I guess kind of my feeling on the Wayne Mario. We'll stop the lightning round for a minute. I want to time out Zach Morris style here. You know, when I watched Wayne and when I watched Mario Lemieux had more size. He had more strength. He basically more power in his game. Wayne had the ability to stop time. Wayne was a chess player. He would slow everything down and wait for plays to happen instead of really forcing the issue. I mean, there were times where Wayne would do his thing and go through everybody like they weren't there. But I looked at Wayne more as a distributor first and a scorer, like a goal scorer second. And he had that luxury because of the team he played on. I don't think Mario had the same luxury in Pittsburgh. I mean, there was definitely some talent in Pittsburgh for sure, but I don't think it was on the same level as the 80s Oilers.
No, absolutely not.
And Wayne, just the peripheral vision, I guess, like, I can't really do it here because my frame isn't big enough, but the things that Walter had him doing at an early age, it led to a guy that had, in my opinion, the best vision of any hockey player ever. And that still stands up. When you go into the debate about, you know, how would he do now? Well, I think if you took that Wayne Gretzky from, you know, the 80s Oilers and put him in today's NHL, I don't think that's fair. I think if you put Wayne Gretzky through the same training regiments that Connor McDavid goes through, you'd still have a phenomenal hockey player. But, you know, and you give him the same equipment, the same sticks, and all of that.
I just don't think he would have the same kind of freedom that he did back then. I mean, like, Wayne was pretty much untouchable, not just because of how he played, but because of who he was. And we don't really have that kind of protection in today's game. Do you know what I mean? Like, our stars get hurt, right?
You don't have enforcers in today's game, but you do have the ability. Well, back in the 80s, in the prime of Wayne's career, you had the ability to, like, the Philadelphia Flyers would just hang on to him. So that's changed. You know, the hooking and the holding and all that was a lot more back then than it is now. That the obstruction kind of get until the playoffs. From an Oilers standpoint, that stuff gets called. You know, back then it didn't, and it didn't in the playoffs then either. I mean, you could murder.
I really also too. I don't think the goalies were as good back then as they are now. I think the skill in goalies has, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. 80s and 90s hockey is my life. Take me back. Please take me back. I love those decades for hockey. But I think that our goalies have even, you know, become better in a sense that they're not, what's the word?
I think, honestly, Jen, that goalies have become bigger now and less athletic. Goalies then were more athletic, but they were smaller.
I mean, there's some goalies that are pretty thin, tall and thin. But thin, like they're
I'm not saying put the fatso in net. I don't believe in that. Like, you know, goalies are in shape now. I just don't, like, if I look at Mikko Koskinen and compare him to Grant Fuhr, it's and even Mike Smith. Mike Smith is a bigger guy. He's very athletic.
It all goes back to the same thing. If you had those guys in today's equipment and today's training and today's big, you know, like, it's hard to do that debate, right? It's
like still fun to talk about. Like,
it's amazingly fun.
Right?
You know, what's also fun is, like, putting Connor McDavid in that same DeLorean when it goes back to the 80s and seeing if he could get 500 points. You know what I mean? Like, with those Mike Vernon's exposed glove hand and the way you could burn guys back then, that would have been fun to see too, right? But I love the banter. I think it's cool. As far as Gretzky and Lemieux goes, like different players completely. There's no doubt
Totally.
about it. I think Gretzky did it with IQ and knowing where people were going to be, and he had nothing but help around him. Where Mario Lemieux, for a lot of those years, like before the years of Kevin Stevens and like what did that one year in 92 or 93, they had like 4 of the top 5 leading scorers, right? Like Recchi, Stevens, Lemieux, I can't even, who else was up there?
Yager.
Francis, Yager, right? Like they might have had 6 of the top 10. But before then, what Mario Lemieux could do that we never really knew if Gretzky could do in his prime was put a team on his back. And I think that's what you maybe meant earlier about like that real eagerness or it's not like Gretzky wasn't a winner. It's not like Gretzky wasn't determined, but man, like Lemieux could
Lemieux had this different heart. Like he had this, he played with like intention. Like he was just a force to watch. And I mean, the unfortunate thing with Mario is he did not have a healthy career.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like to compare them. It's kind of unfair in the sense that Gretzky had, a healthier career. And we really don't know how close Mario could have come to.
You two can't see this, so I'll just bring it up. There's a Darcy Glassford who's checking in from Facebook, and he says maybe it's the wobbly pops, but Lemieux had incredible finesse. I don't fully agree with the power game. In the 90s, Shanahan was a power game. Cam Neely, Wendell Clark. Well, there were games where Mario Lemieux would get absolutely abused, and he would fight through it. That's what I mean by the power game. When
he didn't turn around and punch you in the face, but he would take 35 cross checks.
When he's calling out the league for being a garage league, it was because he was getting sick of the abuse. But he fought through it. I mean, so he was tough. He did have a power game. That's on here now. He's saying Gary Suter 91 Canada Cup fucked up Gretzky bad. Well,
Gretz had a bad back after that one too. He was past his prime at that point, though.
Who was that goalie that deked Gretzky out? Was it Lemieux or not Lemieux? Was it Patrick Waugh or was it a Brodeur? Do you remember that video in a game? When the goalies could come right out to like center ice, and he kind of did a spinorama on Gretzky and moved the puck past him. You've never seen that?
I don't know if I've seen that. No.
Gretzky's just like, what the? Oh, I gotta find it. It's the best.
We had Chris Dingman on the show last week, and he told us a story about. I said, "Oh, you walked Gretzky." He goes, "Well, I didn't walk him. He just didn't try." But he told a story about how he skated around Gretzky and then went bar down on Grand Fuhr or something and got Grand Fuhr benched for 3 months.
Yeah, it was a month, but yeah, 3 months sounds better. Just a little more on
it. I think I still had 3 months on the brain because we were talking about us being together for 3 months. Dursa and I and our 90-day fiance.
I kind of lost my train of thought with the whole lightning stuff, so I'll go to something else here, Jen. And I don't know if you realized, like, you were on the ice tonight or doing your work, and Team Canada, sorry, I can't even speak. Canadian women today played the Americans, and they spanked them 5-1. On that front, and yeah, it's awesome. Good for us, and I love it. And I love it. Who's your favorite female hockey player of all time?
Tough. It's got to be Angela James.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, Cassie Campbell's up there, Haley Wickenheimer. You know who's a woman that I like to watch now? I don't know if she played for Team Canada, but Renata Fast. She played, she played for a team in I forget what the league was, but she was a sensational hockey player to watch. I missed the game tonight because of course I was at work, but it's good to know we beat America because we've had a hard time, our women beating.
And they've been really close games, so to take them to the woodshed, so to speak, is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is there a better name for a hockey player than Fast?
Right? There's some good names. I can't think of them on the spot right now, but I'm sure there are.
Booga boom.
Do you have I don't want to spend too long on it, but do you have a favorite Team Canada female goalie?
probably Shannon's. Yeah.
Tabados, yeah, I'll
There it
help
is.
you there.
I didn't want to butcher her name.
I butchered yours, so I'll save you on there.
Easy for us Edmontonians.
Yeah. So this offseason, the Oilers have made a lot of changes. They brought in Maple Leafs Zach Hyman, signed him to a long-term deal, traded out Ethan Bear, and brought in Warren Foegele from the Carolina Hurricanes. We lost Adam Larson to basically expansion. Seattle signed him to a deal moving forward. So they brought in Cody Ceci to kind of replace that. They traded Caleb Jones, a young prospect, 6'7" defenseman for us really last year, and brought in Duncan Keith from the Chicago Blackhawks. So our goaltending's kind of stayed the same. Re-signed Darnell Nurse to a long-term 8-year deal, and he's still got 1 year left on his old deal, so there's 9 years of Nurse going forward. Re-signed Nuge to a deal going ahead. Do you have any opinions? Because I know you're kind of outside the Edmonton market, but you know good NHL players and stuff. So, any thoughts on all the new acquisitions the Oilers have made? Because there's been a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even wrap my head around that. I can't believe Ethan Bear's gone. He was such a treasure in Edmonton.
It's true.
That bites.
Yeah.
Let me think here. I mean, Duncan Keith, eh?
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Wow. Hey, don't get upset over this. I mean, look at the Oilers postseason lack of success. I'll use the word success. Look at the Oilers postseason success. Okay, there's something missing in that dynamic, right? You bring in a player that has depth in the postseason success, wins, championships. That is a valuable player, especially. Sure, they might not be the same player skill-wise, but that's a presence that you need. And sometimes they don't work. Look, we brought Joe Thornton to Toronto. Didn't really work, right? Marleau to Toronto didn't work. But sometimes it really does work. You got to keep an eye on these veteran players because you do have a captain that, could use a little bit of help from a veteran player. You know what I mean? I think that his on-ice game is phenomenal, Connors, but he's lacking some essential leadership skills that Duncan Keith can come and kind of, help shape Connor, right? So this could be a really, really good thing. And from what I know, he's liked amongst the Duncan Keith. He's liked in the locker room. So this could, like I said, it could be a good thing. What's always been your problem with in the postseason? What's the problem? And don't say we lose because that's kind of basic. But what is the problem?
Lack of depth.
Okay.
Lack of depth, inability to fight through their checks. When you have a team that's built off the rush and that's all you have, I think, that gets plugged up and taken away in the playoffs. And a lot of their success is built off the power play. And power plays are, you get 1 out of every 5 regular season penalty called in the playoffs. And to your point, Jen, they don't have the experience to know how to fight through that and to know how to get to that next step. And you guys brought in Simmons and Thornton and Marleau, and what do all 3 of those guys have in common that they don't have in common with Duncan Keith? And I'm not going to sit here and defend Duncan Keith, but I will defend the fact that we probably need that intangible, right? Like it's the same thing Kawhi Leonard did for the Raptors, right? You look at those 2 ex-Spurs that go and step onto that team, and all of a sudden they teach them how to act in the playoffs. They teach them what it takes. They teach them where that extra gear is. And Connor McDavid, what you said is no slight on him. At the end of the day, you can only learn those things through experience. And he hasn't had the experience or that, exposure in the playoffs to know how to guide a team through it. So
I mean, this comes down to the coaching staff. I think a lot of it falls when teams lose. I look at the coaching staff first and foremost because it is their job to rally up the boys. I mean, you've got superstars on your team. What's his name? Draisaitl is I can watch him all day long, every day. His game is phenomenal. He's something to watch, right? You have these players, and of course, McDavid, he's one of the greatest of all time, no question. But the coach needs to be able to utilize its players to their highest potential. And I haven't seen that in Edmonton. And I don't mean to come down on your coach or whatever.
No,
but
we're on the same page. I agree.
Please do.
It's like, shit or get off the pot. You gotta utilize your players better. And if you don't know how to bring out the best of them on the ice, then you got to take a look at yourself and what your style is, what you're doing wrong. It all starts with the coaches. That's you know what I mean?
I love that you said that. I completely agree. I think that, what some of the things Tippett's made for mistakes is, he hasn't figured out a way to battle through those, if they're playing that playoff 1-3-1 or 1-2-2 on them, then figure out how to break through, right? You got to still create gaps and figure out how to find passing lanes. And if you can't, then that's your X's and O's. And I also don't think he did a great job of his line management because, he's benching guys and benching Bear for mistakes and Darnell's playing 65 minutes as a result. And then we get beat on a tired play, right? He could have called a timeout in game 3. I think Tippett's been a fantastic regular season coach. I think he is a good coach. I just don't think we've seen it in the playoffs, you guys.
The one thing I'll say, when you're talking about Keith and what he brings, and I don't really slight McDavid for leadership, but I haven't we haven't had a guy on the back end with what Keith has. We haven't had a Stanley Cup winner to be part of that ensemble that we put out every night. Yeah. So my thing with Duncan Keith, what I think he's going to bring more than anything is he knows what it takes to win. And he's been there. He's been through it all, and everybody knows that. He's got a great resume, all that. But all that aside, I think it's what he's going to do for somebody like Nurse. Like, Nurse is our guy right now. He is. People want to knock him down. They've done that since we drafted the guy. It's always angered me. It's kind of the one subject with the Edmonton Oilers that angers me on how much people don't even get what Darnell Nurse means to this organization. Oh, he doesn't deserve that. He's been taking a discount his whole career. Yeah, he got paid. Great, let's go. But what Duncan Keith can teach him in the locker room and kind of push him and fuel him. I mean, he fuels himself really hard, but he's going to have a mentor, and he hasn't really had that. And I think that's the part about the whole Duncan Keith acquisition that I look forward to is how it's going to affect Nurse more than anything. And the whole back end, it's been a bit of a, like, last year we had a all right defense, but I just think it's an area that can improve. Now we added some depth up front, and so now, like, Dave Tippett was, he constructed a line. Like, the guy is a bit of a magician. And a genius. He constructs a line of Yamamoto, Draisaitl, and Nugent Hopkins. And they're lighting it up. They're the best line in hockey. And what does he do? Well, it ain't broke, but I'll fix it. And he blew it up. He blew up that line, and it took forever to come back to it. And they lost chemistry. And so what ends up happening is, okay, well, McDavid and Leon, you go play together, and then there's nothing left. And you load that up for the playoffs, and you wonder why you're having trouble. Well, another team just strategizes on how to shut down one line, focus everything you can on one line, lock that down, and they do, and then there's nothing else to chip in anything. So we take games into overtime because we played a pretty good east-west kind of hockey game, and limited chances, and Mike Smith played really well. Their goalie got one more save, and they win the game, and they win the series, and it's a sweep. I kind of joke with Flames fans saying it was a 6-game series because 3 games went into overtime, and the last one went into triple overtime. But you know what I mean? It was probably the closest sweep in NHL history, but it was still a sweep. You still got swept in the first round, and the year before that, who'd you lose to? You lose to Chicago. Who was the catalyst for the Blackhawks? Well, it was Duncan Keith. Now that's 2 years removed, but he was a force.
Kinda.
And Chicago beat us on really tactician stuff. They tipped in everything. They were tipping everything in the net. We couldn't stop it. We couldn't defend against it.
Yeah, youngest coach in the NHL, and Tippett couldn't counter him.
Yeah, you win one game there, and it was a team you should have walked.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago's been crap for years.
Yeah, and now so I think they did do a good job of bolstering their forward group. And if you see Leon and Connor being doled out again together, you got to shake your head. And so to me, this is a season for Dave Tippett where he's got to take this team deeper into the playoffs. You can't just be content with making the first round and home time, let's go golfing. Like it's got to be second, third, or more. And this team needs to push now. Like the way I see it is they're in a 3 to 4 year window to get it done, and that's what it takes. But one of the questions I had for you for the lightning round before, and I've kind of abandoned that, but who gets it done first, Leafs or Oilers?
Ooh, that's interesting for me.
Wow.
I got a personal bet out with a friend of mine. I won't disclose the amount, but first team to win.
I mean, Jesus.
That's a so tough question. It really is. Like I've had the own debate.
It depends on what player. Like if Matthews and Marner show up, I mean, like the Leafs have a good, solid team. Just to touch on them a little bit, Sheldon Keefe just totally failed them this year. They had all the pieces, right? But same thing with coaches like motivating their players. He just didn't do it. You know what I mean? So I mean,
and his failure to dump the puck in, like that puck possession game ruined them, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Mike. I'm going to have to go with Winnipeg Jets. That was part of the question, right?
Yeah, safe answer. That's real good.
Hey, at least I didn't say Calgary.
I know where you live, so that might be like the what is it? Sweden or the neutral Switzerland. That's a Switzerland answer. Atta girl.
Yeah. I mean, Toronto's hometown, right? That's the first team I fell in love with. But I really like Draisaitl. He's one of my favorite players in the league. And of course, Connor's all right.
I like watching Draisaitl, and that's when he's not even on the ice. He's just handsome.
Is he?
Yeah. Actually, he is. I got to give him that. He's a handsome guy.
I mean, Toronto for the fans. Screw you guys. You dominated in the 80s. Like, I feel bad for Leaf fans because they get worked pretty hard, you know?
They do.
Given the close-up view you had of the Leafs over the last few years, like, what are your thoughts on? Because now here we have Ceci and Barry, and that used to be your top pairing in Toronto a few years ago. What do you think of those two?
Ceci's a good player. He just came from Pittsburgh. Well, Pittsburgh, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm really upset with this expansion.
So, like, actually, this is awesome. I'm glad that you have that insight because, we've had a lot of back and forth in Edmonton about which Cody Ceci is going to show up, right? And there's the Ottawa Ceci, the Toronto Ceci, which I don't think was fair. He had a lot of minutes piled on him. I don't think he was in a role that he probably should have been casted for. And I think the most of the time I saw him play in Pittsburgh last year, he played more sheltered minutes, right? Like he was playing, I think, closer to 17 instead of 23. Some more defense or offensive zone starts, as well as some sheltered opponents versus, playing against top lines all the time. And he flourished, right? So do you think if we keep CC in that number 4 spot that we'll be okay there? Or what's your view?
Well, I mean, new team, he might come out and shine. He might come out and just, be his best player. They're the best version of himself. I mean, he knows how to play with a superstar. Like when you have a superstar in your team, it's hard to play. It's hard to play with them. It's hard to play with Crosby. It's hard to play with McDavid. It's hard to, you know what I mean? Sure. Like there's a lot of pressure on the other players to compete to the
There's only so many Chris Kunitzes out there.
Exactly. And
sorry.
You guys are going to make me cry. Stop.
Hey, it's like twice now.
I think
I can make you happy. Hey, you traded Ryan Whitney for him. So, hey, there's a win.
Oh, man. Yeah, so I think if you... It's tough. He's a good player. I enjoyed him. I was sad to see him go. It wasn't what I wanted. I wanted Pettersson gone. I don't know what the heck Ron Hextall's doing. I don't even know why he's our GM. He's a flyer. Get out of here.
Funny. I wondered how many Penguins fans would feel that way because that rivalry, like,
was Jeff Carter, which I mean, he was okay in the playoffs, whatever. Yeah. But then his second move was hiring friends and family, and then he gets rid of McCann and Tanev.
Yeah.
Like, what do you, okay, this isn't, I'm not going to rant about the Penguins.
And McCann for not much either, but no, go ahead.
Go ahead. We don't mind at all.
I have no idea what's going on in that man's head. I think he's a double agent. I think he's here to like just watch Pittsburgh burn. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I'm not on like he's a great GM, but he's just not for Pittsburgh. But anyways, going back to CC, I think, fresh team playing with one of the best in the league, a team that really wants to prove themselves and, go farther in the postseason. I think you'll get a lot out of CC, but it really does depend on the kind of the room, the morale in the room. Like, it was really hard to come into a new team. And if there's, like any tension amongst, like the team not winning and McDavid's not doing what he should be and whatever, it's hard to walk into that and be like, okay, let's, you know what I mean? So it really depends on the mood of the room. But I think if you have like a happy, upbeat team ready to play, ready to compete, ready to win, you'll get the best out of CC. So, I mean, it could be worse.
You think Zach Hyman, if he's playing with McDavid, can he actually get him more points?
Wow. That's a question I can't answer.
It's going to be interesting to see, right? Like, the Oilers have been built so successfully off the rush for the last few years, developing offense off the rush, that now all of a sudden they go and acquire the Hymans and the Fogels. And, these are puck possession guys. These are guys that grind it out in the corners and know how to cycle a puck. And I just wonder, if all of everything we've seen from McDavid has been built off of power play and the rush, what actually having somebody like a Mikko Rantanen on his line can do for him, because like those guys are dogs on a bone, right? They go and get the puck and get it to you. So could that actually make him more successful? Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they do, what their skill is, how good they are, or what they can contribute. It comes down to that chemistry. You know what I mean? And if they can talk to each other without talking to each other, you know what I mean, on the ice.
For sure. Yeah.
They know the players move without having to, you know what I mean? That chemistry, that's going to make or break any player's success with McDavid. And like I said before, with superstars, it's hard to play with them, Yeah. They're hard to play with. So it's tough for the other players too, because of the pressure, and, you don't want to let your captain down and so on and so forth. So I think one of the biggest things Edmonton has to, like, the coach and everyone has to, like, the staff, has to think about first with this new kind of barrage of players is that chemistry, team building. Focus on that. Don't come into the preseason with, like win. Let's build that camaraderie, like that family feeling, because when you have those connections and that chemistry, the pressure comes off, you play more naturally, and you play the game the way you grew up playing it.
Yeah.
Having fun, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I think Edmonton's going to be a better team. I see Edmonton doing better, a lot better, but I just don't know if they're a playoff team. You know what I mean? I just don't know it yet. I can't predict.
For success in the playoffs, you mean, right?
Sorry?
Like the successful once they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, like, if they can give that, and that has nothing to do with being swept before. It's just, it's kind of like Toronto. Do they have that postseason mentality? You know what I mean?
Right.
And like I said with Keith, he's gonna be, Dr. Keith. He's gonna be the one to help your team, and I think that's a huge benefit for you guys. So definitely hopeful. If the Leafs and Edmonton meet in the playoffs, I mean, we're going 7 games, and
well, that'll be the Stanley Cup final then.
Oh yeah, right. Are we going back to the old format?
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. Wouldn't that be something for Canadian media?
Yeah, right. We're not
Leafs, Oilers, Stanley Cup.
The Canadian division is no more, isn't it?
She gone.
Well, yeah. Well, that's not going to happen.
I want to circle
the Stanley Cup final. Well, not anytime too soon, anyways.
I want to circle back to something you said earlier, Jen, because some of the guys you play like senior hockey and stuff with, they'll tell you, and they climb the ranks a little bit in junior and whatever. They'll say the head coach in the NHL is, they do the X's and O's, but the rah days are pretty much gone. You still think that plays a big role in the success of a team to maybe it's not barking like a dog anymore, but it's just saying the right thing to, click somebody's mind on more than, scare them into playing better. You think that's
the way? You can't do that. You can't scare. I've always said that hockey is like 70% mental and 30% physical, and it's a very physical game. So that gives you an idea of how, how the mentality. I'm actually currently writing a book on the mentality of hockey, and it's one of the biggest factors. And if you don't have a coach that can, relate to that player without being a complete, POS to the player and dogging them and making them feel bad, like John Tortorella benching players because they're not getting the best. You're not going to get the best out of your player when you make them feel like crap. You know what I mean? There's different routes. So I think it's so important for a coach to understand that mentality factor when you're trying to, bring the best out of them, relate to them. You yell and scream at them, you're going to lose the room immediately. And then your team just falls apart and everyone just goes through the motions. So, yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
You did.
I heard Peter DeBoer interviewed on a local radio station here, and he had said that outside of being a good communicator, the hardest part of being an NHL coach is staying relevant, really, So, that's him tipping off that being able to communicate probably is one of the most important parts of your job. And I think, being empathic and putting yourself in your players' skates and understanding what makes each one of them tick. You can't paint an entire team with one brush anymore like you used to, right? Like Mike Keenan could just say, I'm sending y'all down to the AHL and screw y'all, and it didn't matter. But nowadays you need to find how each player how each player is motivated, and I think that's one of the keys, if I'm not mistaken, Jen.
100%. I'm like firm on that aspect of the like relating to the player one-on-one. And I forget what coach it was, but he'd go out after practice and have lunch or go for a beer with certain players, you know what I mean, and get to know them, know what makes them tick, know how to talk to them. And it's so important, especially in game time, when you see a player that's getting hard on himself for, missing an open net or taking a bad penalty, and you can bring that player out of that rut right there on the bench. That comes down to the relationship between the player and the coach. And it's so important to have good relationships with all the players, but still keep that level of, I'm the coach, and if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to give you less, but don't threaten. You know what I mean? It's so important to make that player feel that you want them to be their best for them and for the team, not for the coach.
Right. One of the last times that you were on the bench for when you were coaching, you'd reference a story in one of your blogs about your team being on a giant losing streak and your head coach getting suspended and you having to step in and be the head coach for 4 games. And you guys won all 4 of those games. What did you do different?
The players liked me. I had good relationships with them, and they could relax with me. The pressure was off. They could go out and have some fun. And I guess they wanted to make me look good. Like, it was a mix of so many things. I wondered
that when I read it. Yeah.
But even the other team, one of the best teams in the league, came over, and like the players were shaking my hand. The coaches, they were like, unbelievable. You put life in this team.
Yeah,
and
you should be proud of that.
I put myself with the players, I played my part like they play their part. I wasn't, on a pedestal.
Yeah.
I was, there for them, and they just, what? Hockey players are human too, right? They have feelings.
Sure.
And if you know how to tap into their, play to their character, their personality, you'll get the best out of them. So it's just relating to them and, asking questions, not just telling, not delegating. Say, what do you think would work this way? Making them feel that they're valuable in every aspect, and you'll get the best out of your player, hands down, every time.
Yeah, making them feel they're valuable, that's super key. I absolutely agree with that answer.
Even your third and fourth liners.
That's right.
They're so important, they're no different than your first line. They're out to do the same thing, right?
Yeah, you don't win without them. That's right.
Little known fact. The last hockey game I coached, I was ejected.
Nice. That doesn't surprise me, though.
Yeah.
It was after a big losing streak, and the coach that replaced him won all the games.
No, it was actually...
I just made that up.
It was actually they call it the banner game for Adams, my son's Adam team, and I I got ejected, and I was supposed to leave the arena, but I stayed in the dressing room and was kind of coaching the coaches from the room.
So what got you ejected?
Well, at the end of the first period, there was a goal that went in, and the one ref signaled the goal, and then the other ref came and talked to him, and then he called it off, saying that he blew his whistle already, but the same ref signaled the goal. So they're doing that, and okay, whatever. And then play goes the other way, and our goalie's on top of the puck, and they blow the whistle, and then it gets jammed in the net, and they signal that a goal. So I started throwing water bottles on the ice, but they never even
seems like a logical reaction.
They didn't even,
especially for Adam hockey,
right? And they didn't even the referees didn't even see it happen. My kids went and picked up the water bottle, brought it to the bench, and just kind of neatly put it on there like somebody just dropped it accidentally. Yeah. So we go in for an intermission, and then I think parents told the kids what I did, and so the second period starts, and there's like another play, and I was getting excited. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, you're out of here. I'm like, what? Really? I said, are you sure? He's like, yep. I'm like, well, that's the best call you've made all night. I did my dad's trick, because my dad used to coach basketball, and when he would get a technical foul, he would say, oh, that's the best call you made all night. And then he'd get another one, and then he'd get another one, and then back then he used to get 3, and then he'd say, that's the second best call you made all night, and then they'd give him another one, and then you're ejected, right? So I pulled his move out. I'm like, well, that's the best call you made all night. But I was already kicked out, so I walk across the ice, and my whole team's like parents. They're all like clapping and happy and excited, because we were basically getting screwed by the hometown refs and this out of town shit. And
I hate that.
and yeah, so I got tossed, and then I decided, well, maybe I'm taking youth hockey a little too intensely, and step back and enjoyed being a parent to my kids and watching.
You got to remember, I'm gonna throw this in here, because I've dealt with a lot of parents as a coach, especially with kids. You and don't take any disrespect to this. Just kind of take it as kind of like just advice, I guess.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word, is when you're dealing with the kids and they see how you behave or how you interact with the refs, how you interact with the other coaches on the other team, and so on and so forth. Yeah. They're learning. They're kind of, you're programming them, and they're gonna kind of like, you know what I mean? And it's no disrespect, Mike, at all, but you got to keep that in mind at all times, especially at that age, because you're gonna start building behavior kind of styles in not just your kid or the other kids, but everyone watching. You know what I mean? So it's so important to like kind of be the best role model you can for the kids, in a sense that, I mean, trust me, I know with the officiating, like you kind of at some point you just kind of give up. You're like, okay, like why did we come to play? Like, what are you doing, right? Yeah. But the way you talk to your players and other coaches, the players are going to grow up and kind of emulate that.
Yeah.
Right, with their players.
The best thing about that season, honestly, was I coached with 2 other gentlemen, and their sons all played on the team, and we had a rule that if your kid was doing something, you didn't deal with them, so the other coaches did. So you never dealt directly with your kid if there was a disciplinary thing or anything like that. So. It never became personal with you and your child. So,
that's actually really smart.
I had a great staff, and we had a really good season. But that game, it just became a quagmire, and shit happened, and that's the way it went. Like I've played so much sports that if somebody's jawing me and trash talking me, it really has no effect. It doesn't really faze me. So if another coach is on my case and I'm coaching against them, they get mad because they're barking at me, and it just
it's just bouncing off you, like it's
like like parents, other coaches, all that has no effect on me. But that game, I think I started to get animated and aggravated because it was a sham, right? And it just if it was almost at the point where I should have pulled the kids off the ice, and I look at that as almost communist. Like that's not my.
No, you got to become like the coach from what's his name? In Mighty Ducks, the other team.
Oh.
I can't remember. Like 30 years since I watched them. You remember Mighty Ducks, right?
Oh, of course.
When you'd be like, "Go take out this player, yeah, just
yeah."
No, I don't advise against that. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But I'm like not kidding. I'm like kidding that much. That much.
There's
It's tough.
There's a reboot of the Mighty Ducks on Disney now. Like it's like a TV show, and Dylan Playfair, from Letterkenny's another coach on there, and he's got a funny little role that he's on there. I've watched a little bit of it. I haven't watched the whole season or whatever, but I started watching a few episodes, and it was actually, I thought it was almost better than the movies. Like they were kind of neat and funny and whatever. But okay? So this is another question. What's your favorite all-time hockey movie?
Mystery Alaska.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Dash, what do you got?
Slapshot.
Yeah.
Youngblood too. That's
Youngbloods.
Yeah. You know what? Youngblood is probably the one I've watched the most. The part
How can you pick one? That's not fair.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why I said Slapshot.
On Ice is good. I mean, and I like screw America, but like that's such a good story, and it was such a good movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, was it Kurt Russell that played the coach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Screw America. I'm with you.
My one critique of Slapshot is the ending. I sink when that's the part I hate. The Hansons and they brought their fucking toys. I love that, but the ending for me, the ending of Youngblood, you're fighting Racky and knocking him out, and then the kids want your autograph and all that.
Yeah, it's so good.
Fair.
So that's my one bitch about Slapshot is just the ending. That part I just and you know what? Like I know it's a bit of a spoof, but there is a negative side to Slapshot. Like it does paint hockey players in a bit of a shitty light, but don't take it too seriously. But
how it was back then.
I gotta say this.
Relative to the time.
I gotta say this. There's people that are diehard Goon fans, and they think that's the best movie ever. And I like the cameos, by ex-NHLers and all that in there. But I don't know. I don't love Goon or Goon 2. It's just.
It's all right. I mean, it's all right.
That's where it is for me.
It's
too.
just all right, though.
Yeah.
It's cool because it's a hockey movie, and then it ends there.
Yeah. No, it's all right, but it's not. Yeah. I don't. Like, when I was little, I had a routine of before I would play a game, I would watch Youngblood and Boys on the Bus, like before every minor hockey game. That was my kind of routine to calm down. And I also would do something else right before a game, every game that I had to do or I couldn't play, and it didn't matter what sport. I had to go to the bathroom, whether I went 5 times that day or not. I had to go to the bathroom. It was I don't know why, but
you're hilarious.
Yeah, Mike would get this nervous energy, and and that's
hilarious.
It still happens to me now. I'm still like a little kid when I play sports. I just get wound up, and it's like Christmas.
He does it before every podcast too, Jen.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Nope.
No doubt.
Totally at ease here.
He guzzles some water. I gotta go.
Yeah. No, normally.
Well, it's better than having an accident during game time, right?
Yeah, I've never had a Roberto Luongo.
Oh, that's right.
You don't know about that, do you?
Oh, I thought it was Vasilevsky that shit himself on the ice, and
no, Luongo had a.
I think both of them.
Yeah, no, I remember. I was watching, and he left.
Vasilevsky had to leave the ice too.
Was like, yeah, he shit himself.
Yeah, totally. That happened. It did.
Yeah. I love Torts.
It was Cooper, wasn't it?
No, was it? I thought it was Torts that said it.
Well, if you're saying Torts, that's probably Luongo in Vancouver. So
no. Oh. It was Vasilevsky because it was recent.
Because Luongo.
I think Vasilevsky did it with Cooper, but I think that Luongo did do it while Torts was the coach in Vancouver. And I think Torts said what happened to Luongo, and he answered he shit himself.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, no, that'll never happen to Mike because he goes to the bathroom first.
Yeah, he's good. He's clear. He's like,
He's good. Ever since then, he's been wearing an adult diaper on the show, so we're good.
That's your sponsor, right?
It added. Yeah, depends. Yeah, that depends. It added a half inch to my vertical when I was playing basketball, and at least like a quarter of a mile an hour on the ice for speed. So, gotta do it.
That's a big commitment watching Youngblood before every game. I just used to record the Michael Jordan "Be Like Mike" commercial and play it for myself because I thought it was for me.
Yep.
Be like Mike.
I had a dream that he is me. You got to see. That's how I dream to be.
That's the one. We are off the rails here. Holy shit. Mighty Ducks and singing songs. Hey, love it. Love it.
You guys are fun.
And back to X's and O's a little bit. I wanted to ask you something else. And hey, we could stay fun if you want. I don't care. I thought something else in that Pete DeBoer interview that I heard was pretty cool. He had talked about, having to stay relevant and being one of the hardest jobs. And that one of the biggest trends he'd seen in the NHL over the last couple of years was that, in order to offensively counter the trap or any of the trap styles out there, it was bringing up that defenseman into the rush and bringing that fourth person to try to create offensive rush opportunities. What are some of the trends you've seen in the NHL in the last few years that you see really kind of the game moving towards, or anything that you see that you'd change in the NHL?
Oh, yes, definitely. Female coaches. Sorry, you said change.
No, let's do it. Yeah, I know it's a dream of yours. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be great to see some women behind the bench. I think women, they're more patient, and they're okay. I know guys, they're more emotional when they're on their period. They go crazy.
I'm the most emotional guy you'll ever meet. That's okay. I was crying right before I came on the podcast.
Sorry, Jen. I need you to clarify. Were you referring to men or women on their period?
I guarantee you, I guarantee you, I cry more than any of the three of us right here.
I could give you a run for your money, but I think with regards to changing the, they need to rewrite the rule book, or stick to the officiating's garbage. It's so inconsistent. The suspensions. I mean, this is your specialty there, Dursa, with your parody and your whatever it's called.
Yeah, no, we're with
your opinion. Sorry, that word. Your I lost my train of thought. You mentioned it before in a tweet about the inconsistencies with the suspensions, and what's his name? I forget his name.
George Peros.
That guy, yeah, that guy. How inconsistent. He's like the poster boy for the DP, Department of Player Safety, and he doesn't do his job properly, right? So I think that they need to kick him out and appoint, like I said, you, Dursa, because you've got a good head for this stuff. Like I see a lot of people come in and they talk about what should have happened and this, that, and the other on Twitter, and I think for the most part, you're pretty sound on with what you think's right and should be. But anyways, they're not going to.
Yeah, he's the calm, stoic one out of the two of us. That's for sure.
And you're level-headed and you're consistent with everything. And you don't just deal with just the Oilers. You talk about other stuff. So from what I've seen, anyways. Anyways,
I think that is absolutely one thing we should change about the NHL. That Mike Dursa should fight George Peros for his job. That's the best suggestion we've ever had on this show.
Yeah,
I totally would love that. I mean, he's useless. He's just you're not doing. And I know it's not just him. I know there's a panel of them, but they all suck. Get them out. You've got to have, better officiating. What was that one that said, I'm going to give him a penalty? He ended up getting canned. You can't have that shit.
Tim Peel, yeah.
Tim Peel.
You can't have that crap. It makes us think the games are fixed. As
soon as they suspended Tim Peel, the officiating got worse. It totally went into shitter. Because as soon as they exposed
guys weren't sure how to call an even up call anymore. They thought they
right. As soon as game management kind of came into question, they sure as shit started managing games. It got brutal. Penalties weren't penalties. They've had 3 tonight. Okay, so we go cross-check a guy in the neck. That's good because they've already had 3. You've had one.
Exactly.
What the fuck? If it's a penalty, call it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. The officiating's frustrating.
Some games when a team's dominating and the other team's taking liberties on them, They should have more penalties than the team that's dominating them. Like, what the fuck is that?
I think players should police themselves again too.
Yeah.
I don't say bring back the enforcer, but I mean, like, I think the players should be able to police themselves. That's an aspect of hockey that's always been beautiful. You know what I mean? You got your stars. You got to protect them a little bit. You got to have that player that's going to be like, I'm not going to touch him or I'm going to lose a couple teeth. Like, I think that's a really important aspect that we
get rid of the fighting.
People have gone soft. Everyone's like, oh, fighting. Oh my God, we shouldn't be. And then they go watch the next MMA fight.
Right.
It's like,
get rid of the fighting instigator penalty. Like, get rid of that. And if a guy is being a shithead out there and he has it coming to him and somebody's going to take him to task and he just runs and hides, like pulls a Sean Avery or whatever, don't protect him.
Yeah.
Don't protect them.
And it made me think of it earlier when Jen said, how much space Gretzky had. I read Dave Semenko's book, and it wasn't about going out there and necessarily knocking the shit out of somebody. It was the fact that he'd whisper over their boards and say, the next time you touch Gretz, I'm going to two-hand Al McInnes so hard that he won't even be able to walk for 2 weeks. And then guys police themselves. It didn't have to be a fight.
Well, that's what I think we need. I think that should be an aspect. And I mean, screw staged fights. I don't like them. But when was that one where the puck dropped and everyone just started fighting?
Yeah, the Rangers this year, maybe.
Oh, take me back. I know it was coming. It was coming. But I mean, I think that it's an aspect of the game that's good for the players. It's entertaining for the fans. But then it kind of like the officiating could be, a little bit more regulated too when the players are kind of, I hire me to coach any team. Let's go.
I got one thought for you, and I think we're tiptoeing on an hour here.
Yeah.
So, never in my life have I seen a goalie stand on his head. You brought up Peter DeBoer. You got a goalie that stands on his head night in, night out, puts a franchise basically on its back, takes him, to the Stanley Cup. Stanley Cup.
Going to Flower, isn't it?
Stanley Cup final. The guy wins a Vezina trophy and gets traded for absolutely nothing. What the fuck is that?
That's like a major disrespect. And Flower didn't even know. Like his agent read about it on Twitter, and you don't treat people like that. I mean, oh God.
Yeah.
I couldn't. And then they spelled his name wrong when they kind of the Hawks announced him, and they spelled it. You know what? I don't know if this was to distract from what's going on with Chicago and their, you know what I mean, kind of because that's a big one. Like, how do you just give a player away? Say here, one of the best goalies in the league. Here you go.
The best goalie.
Here.
Won the Vezina.
Yeah.
Here you go. Just whatever. Send us a hot dog voucher.
And a gem of a human.
That's a major disrespect, and I don't think things like that should happen. I think contracts are in place, and I think that you can't just give away. I mean, you can't. There's got to be. It's
it's to me almost Vegas is giving the Coyotes a run for the money for the most unprofessional franchise in the NHL right now.
Especially after the success they've had since they came in, they've been a force.
That's
strange moves.
Is it an arrogance thing? I don't understand, or just a lack of you got to know that's not cool. You
don't treat your players like that, especially when he's a fan favorite.
Well, usually
you don't do that.
Usually when you trade somebody, as soon as that deal is inked, you're on the phone with the player to let them know. I mean, Edmonton has a history of firing coaches over Skype, so I guess I can't be too critical.
Poor Ralph Kruger.
Yeah.
I think what Vegas did was just totally classless. It wasn't treating the player Flower the way he deserved after everything. At least they should have told him, we're sending you to Chicago for nothing. Just we'll pay for your flight. But yeah, no, it's not cool. I honestly I thought something was going to happen kind of between Pittsburgh and Chicago, and this was kind of just a distraction, and something was going to happen, but
That'd been cool.
Yeah, no, it wasn't cool. Flower deserved much better.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how we're doing for time, Mike. I don't have it in front of me, but I'd love to ask Jen just one more quick question if she's got a quick answer for us, and I think it's an important one to end on, and then I'll give you the last word if that's cool. Jen, how long is it going to be till we see a female coaching in the NHL?
I mean, I'm hoping in the next couple of years.
Awesome.
But who knows?
Love
I
to-
mean,
love to see you there.
the male ego is so yeah.
It's not an easy answer. I know. Maybe
It's
I shouldn't
not.
have set you up there, but a couple of years. Let's
I'd
bank
say
on
within
that.
the
And I
next
hope
10
you're
years,
right.
10 years for sure. You'll see one as an assistant or an advisor, or like the eye in the sky.
Yeah,
But as a head
yeah.
coach, we're looking at least 10 years, and it's going to be me.
I hope it's you, and I hope you win that cup. And I want to read your book when you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just crossed the hour threshold, and it went by like like nothing. So I thank you for coming on, Jennifer,
Jen.
and you're welcome anytime you've got time for us.
Yeah, definitely.
It was a lot of fun. So I'm gonna shut her down like we always do, and I'm gonna tell you guys to keep your sticks on the ice and keep reaching for the stars.
Keep your head up.
Go Oilers, go! Yeah, keep your head up and your chiclets in your mouth. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Hey, that one was a beauty out there. I can't believe how fast that went. That was our A game.
That was good. Thanks for having me, by the way.
You're welcome.
Fantastic.
Thanks for coming.
I sent that link to that chat that we had about, it was Patrick Roy.
Patrick
Now you
Roy,
are
yeah.
Don Cherry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Piranha.
Roy,
Patrick Roy.
when he